You are listening to the For Flourishing's Sake podcast by Frederica Roberts. Welcome to episode 15. Today I have a special guest for you. Our guest is a motivational speaker and the author of How to Enjoy and Succeed in School and College. A former youth worker and hip-hop DJ, he now works in businesses, schools and colleges helping people to get good and make the best out of their time there. He is past president of the Professional Speaking Association in the UK and Ireland, and he's also somebody I'm very honoured to call my friend. Our guest is Lee Jackson, one of the loveliest, kindest and most supportive people I know in the speaking world. In today's podcast, the first of a two-parter, Lee asks a question I ask at the very beginning of my book, For Flourishing's Sake, which, as you know, is coming out in June 2020. Over to you, Lee.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here on your podcast. I just want to talk to your listeners today about something which I love to talk about when I'm out and about in schools or in the workplace doing the talks that I do and the books that I write, and that is the why. Now, you know that probably Simon Sinek wrote a book a few years ago called Start With Why, but actually there's nothing new about that because everybody's been talking about the why for years. What I love to do is get people to stop and think, why do you do what you do? Now, the answer to that can't be to pay the mortgage, even though it does, or to pay the rent, or to pay my bills. We do need money, as Zig Ziglar says, that money is pretty close to oxygen on the list of things that we require. But actually, it's not a financial question because the research that I've done, money actually is a very poor motivator. And when we're talking about happiness and well-being, actually money is quite a poor motivator. In fact, I did some research years ago and found out that if someone gets a pay rise, it only kind of affects their well-being for about 2 weeks, and then they forget about it. And then we go back to kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we go back to what kind of coffee and flexible working hours. Anyway, I digress. Money is not really the reason that we do our jobs, because there's a bigger reason. Why do you do it, and why do you keep going back? What is it that keeps you there at your job? Because those things, I think, are really important and help us to flourish, as you say on your podcast, Fred. So I want to give you a few questions, really. What is the purpose of your workplace? You know, not the cynical purpose, but, you know, when you're having a bad day. But what's the purpose of your workplace? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever stepped back and thought, okay, why are we here? What is it that we're here to achieve? Because that is a great motivator. And then maybe write down why you actually come to work. Is it a person? Is it the feeling of making a difference? Is it the feeling that you have changed someone's life? Like I said, it's not about money. It can be so much deeper than that. Why do you bother getting out of bed on a morning? Why do you not do something a bit simpler? Because most of you listen to this podcast, and if you're in education or other jobs, when you listen to this podcast, do you know what? There's always an easier job out there. There's always a job with a bit less hassle, with a bit that requires a bit less brain power. So why is it that you get out of bed in the morning to do the job that you're doing now? And also, what keeps you there? I remember when I was a youth worker many years ago, we used to do, pre-internet marketing, you know, to get young people to an event. If we were putting on a youth event, it was always like we had to get them there with a bit of glamour and glitz, and it was a band, or it was in those days, a video wall. Do you remember those? If you're old enough, before we had big screens, we had video walls, which was just a bank of TVs, and we do all this kind of stuff. But it was the kind of the attractions that used to bring them to an event, but it was the relationships that kept them coming to an event, kept them coming to youth work, keeps them coming to schools. So it's never just about money or the glitzy stuff. It's actually about the relationships and them making a difference. So when you're having a tough day, maybe you need to go back to a list of why you do what you do, to help you to flourish, to help you to enjoy your day. Maybe on a morning you need to think or have something on your wall, so when you get into work you can look at that and think, that's the reason that I do my job. For 14 years I was a schools worker running a charity, and I had my moment my big ding moment. You know, when your brain goes ding and you have that kind of moment. Mine was that, and it kept me going. It was really helped me to understand why I did what I do.
To find out about Lee's why, tune in to episode 16 next week. Thank you for tuning in to the For Flourishing's Sake podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I'd be really grateful if you'd spread the word. If you'd like to get in touch with questions or comments, or to contribute to a future episode, please go to forflourishingsake.com, where you'll find all my contact details, and there you'll also be able to leave individual comments on specific episodes. I look forward to hearing from you.